Welcome to Word of Knowledge Christian Center, where we're helping to build a kingdom, not just a church, where Apostle A.C. Morgan is our pastor. Join us on WebEx on Sundays for our morning service at 10 a.m. and discipleship training, Wednesdays at 7:30 p.m. Listen to a Word of Knowledge broadcast on the radio or download the Wilkins Radio app.
If you're interested in hearing this message or other messages that I have placed on the radio, I invite you to go to your favorite podcast form and key in a Word of Knowledge broadcast. You do not need to know which radio station or time you heard the broadcast. A complete list of titles will come up. You are listening to a Word of Knowledge broadcast, and I am your hostess, Apostle A.C. Morgan. Before I get started today, I want to share a message that God gave me to share with the leadership of various ministries. He said that the leadership is not talking enough about heaven. He said he's not talking about streets paved with gold and never having to worry about bills again, and never having to be sick again. He said that's not what he's talking about. He's talking about the leadership is not talking enough about how to get into heaven. God is saying that the people are not being taught on how to live and the standards God is looking for in order for us to make it into heaven. That they're not being told that the sin that's in their lives cannot be present if they want to make it to heaven. Heaven isn't going to be like earth. These things that we tolerate, these things that we do that are contrary to God, they will not be in the heavenly realm. He's saying we're not teaching the people how they must live down here on earth in order to make it to heaven. Last week we ended in Numbers chapter 20, and we were reading verses 1 through 13. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to start back at verse 1. Then the Israelites, the whole congregation, came into the wilderness of Zin in the first month, in the 40th year after leaving Egypt, and the people lived in Kadesh. Miriam died there and was buried there. Now there was no water for the congregation, and they gathered together against Moses and Aaron. Then the people contended with Moses and said, "If only we had perished when our brothers perished in the plague before the Lord. Why have you brought up this assembly of the Lord into this wilderness to die here, we and our flock? Why have you made us come up from Egypt to bring us to this wretched place? It is not a place of grain or figs or of vines or of pomegranate, and there is no water to drink." Then Moses and Aaron went from the presence of the assembly to the doorway of the tent of meetings. This was also the tabernacle, and fell on their faces before the Lord in prayer. Then the glory and brilliance of the Lord appeared to them, and the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, "Take the rod, and you and your brother Aaron assemble the congregation and speak to the rock in front of them, so that it will pour out its water. In this way you shall bring water for them out of the rock, and let the congregation and their livestock drink fresh water." So Moses took the rod from before the Lord, just as he had commanded him. If you remember, in part 1 of this message, we went over the first time God told Moses to hit the rock to give water to the Israelites and the livestock. It was this time that the Lord gave Moses special instructions that were different from the first instruction. Let's look over those first instructions that God gave Moses. We'll find them over in Exodus 17, and I'm going to start with verse 2. It reads, "Therefore the people quarreled with Moses and said, 'Give us water so we may have something to drink.' And Moses said to them, 'Why do you quarrel with me? Why do you tempt the Lord and try his patience?' But the people were thirsty for water, And the people murmured against Moses and said, "Why did you bring us up from Egypt to kill us and our children and our livestock?" So Moses cried to the Lord for help, saying, "What shall I do with this people? They are almost ready to stone me." Then the Lord said to Moses, "Pass before the people and take with you some of the elders of Israel, and take in your hand the staff with which you struck the Nile, and go. Behold, I will stand before you there on the rock at Horeb. There you shall strike the rock, and water will come out of it, so that the people may have something to drink." And Moses did so in the sight of the elders of Israel. We just read what the instructions were that God gave Moses the first time to supply the people and the animals with water. Now let's see what the instructions were for the second time. Let's pick up in the book of Numbers, chapter 20, and we're going to start with verse 3. It reads, "The people contended with Moses and said, 'If only we had perished when our brothers perished in the plague before the Lord. Why have you brought up the assembly of the Lord into this wilderness to die here, we and our livestock? Why have you made us come up from Egypt to bring us to this wretched place? It is not a place of grain or of figs or of vines or of pomegranate, and there is no water to drink." They were complaining because they didn't have any provisions. In the wilderness, one of the things that the children of Israel was supposed to learn while being out in the wilderness was that God was their provision. Everything they needed, He would see that they had it. But they couldn't seem to grasp that. We are now going to Numbers chapter 20, and we're going to pick up at verse 8. 8 reads, "Take the rod, and you and your brother Aaron assemble the congregation and speak to the rock in front of them, so it will pour out its water. In this way you shall bring the water for them out of the rock, and let the congregation and their livestock drink fresh water." Did you catch the instructions that the Lord gave him concerning the rock? So Moses took the rod from before the Lord, just as he had commanded him. And Moses and Aaron gathered the assembly before the rock. Remember now, we're talking about not allowing people to cause us not to make it to heaven. Moses said to them, "Listen now, you rebels. Must we bring you water out of this rock?" Then Moses raised his hand in anger, and with his rod he struck the rock twice instead of speaking to the rock as the Lord had commanded. And the water poured out abundantly, and the congregation and their livestock drank fresh water. Let's look into this verse a little more. Let's go over to Psalm 78 verse 16, and it reads, "He brought streams also from the rock at Rephidim and Kadesh, and caused waters to run down like rivers." Isaiah chapter 48 verse 21 says, "They did not thirst when he led them through the desert. He made the waters flow out of for them. He split the rock and the waters flowed." Now let's go to 1 Corinthians chapter 10 verse 4, and it reads, "And all of them drank the same spiritual drink, for they were drinking from a spiritual rock which followed them, and the rock was Christ." These next verses are where I got this message from. Don't allow people to cause you to miss out on the promised land. The promised land is heaven for us. We've already read what Christ has said. He's going back to prepare a place for us. He would be back to get us, to take us to that place. You cannot allow the people to cause you to miss out on heaven. They will come 7 different ways. Someone is thinking, who are those people she's referring to? It may be your best friend asking you to do something that you know is contrary to God. or it could be a co-worker you are having issues with, and you're fighting to stay in your lane of salvation. Don't allow people to cause you to miss out on the promised land, heaven. It is at this point right here when Moses lost the opportunity to enter into the promised land. He allowed the people to cause him to do what God did not tell him to do. We are still in the book of Numbers. We are in Numbers 20, verse 12. 12 says, "But the Lord said to Moses and Aaron, because you have not believed, trusted me to treat me as holy in the sight of the sons of Israel, you therefore shall not bring this assembly into the land which I have given them." Let's get more information on this verse. Let's go over to Numbers chapter 20, verse 24, and it reads, "Aaron will be gathered to his people in death, for he shall not enter the land which I have given to the children of Israel, because you both rebelled against my command at the waters of Meribah." Numbers chapter 27, verse 14 says, "Because in the wilderness of Zin, during the strife of the congregation, you rebelled against my command to treat me as holy by following my instructions before their eyes at the water. These are the waters of Meribah in Kadesh, in the wilderness of Zin." Deuteronomy chapter 1, verse 37 reads, "The Lord was angry with me also because of you, saying, not even you shall enter Canaan." Deuteronomy chapter 3, verse 26 says, "But the Lord was angry with me because of you and your rebellion at Meribah, and would not listen to me. And the Lord said to me, enough, speak to me no longer about this matter." Deuteronomy chapter 3, verse 27. "Go up to the top of Mount Pisgah and raise your eyes toward the west and north and south and east, and see it with your eyes, for you shall not cross this Jordan." Did you notice that God held Aaron just as responsible for what Moses did? Do you think it could have been because God put both of them in charge of carrying out the responsibility of his command? Let's go back and pick up at Numbers chapter 20, verse 13. It says, "These are the waters of Meribah, contention, strife, where the sons of Israel contended with the Lord, and he showed himself holy among them." Let's obtain more information on Numbers 20, verse 13. Why is it that we allow our emotions to get the best of us? Here, that's what happened with Moses. He allowed all the frustration, all the tension that he had received or that had built up in him from dealing with the children of Israel in the wilderness. They were complaining. They were never happy. And whenever something needed to be done, they always put the fault on Moses and his brother. I can understand Moses' frustrations because people are the same way today. But we have to remember, when we're dealing with individual people, we're dealing with spirits as well. Let's go over to Exodus chapter 17, verse 7. It reads, "He named the place where this miracle occurred Massa, meaning test, and Meribah, meaning contention, because of the quarreling of the sons of Israel, and because they tested the patience of the Lord, saying, is the Lord among us or not?" Psalm 95, verse 8 says, "Do not harden your hearts and become spiritually dull as at Meribah, the place of strife, and as at Massa, the place of testing in the wilderness." As children of the living God, we all should be working so hard to be able to dwell with him and his son throughout eternity. Nothing should come first place to that. In other words, we should be working so hard that no matter what comes, what goes, what happens, what's said, it is not important enough to break our relationship with God. If I have said something that in your mind is questionable or you want to know more about, I encourage you to get with God on it. Question Him. Ask Him to explain it to you. I can promise you He will explain it to you. You've been listening to a Word of Knowledge broadcast, and I am your hostess, Apostle A.C. Morgan.
Dr. A.C. Morgan, Th.D., Apostle, and Arthur have a variety of books, workbooks, and study manuals available for purchase. I will, O Lord, magnify, exhort, and praise you at all times. The stages of your spiritual walk, preparing your spiritual walk in Christ Jesus. The Book of James, a study guide for the individual, small, and large study group. Discipleship Training Course 101. I hear what you're saying, but I don't understand. Discipleship Training Course, The Gospel of St. John. Spiritual First Aid Kit, a personal kit for the survivor. Proverbs, a book of wisdom. Insight from the wisest man of his time, Book 1. You can purchase these at wordofknowledge.net/store or amazon.com or Barnes & Noble.